YouTube thumbnails, folks, that's what we're covering in this video. I'm going to take you behind the scenes to this image. I'm going to show you the photo shoot, how I've lit myself, and then I'm going to show you how I've compiled all of the layers together in Photoshop to create an eye-catching thumbnail for YouTube. Now this was a lot of fun to put together. It put me in some very awkward positions, so I was sore the next day after filming this, but it was fun to put together, folks, and one that I thought you guys would get a lot out of it. Now it's not going to be a long video. I'm not going to go into a massive amount of detail on the composite side of it. I'm just going to show you how it's broke down, because all of the stuff I'm using in Photoshop is really simple, basic stuff. There's nothing complicated that I've done to create this image that you guys cannot follow along. Okay, so that's what we're going to be doing in this video, and now we're going to take you guys behind the scenes and show you the photo shoot and show you all of those awkward positions I found myself in. It's a nice easy setup here, folks. I'm simply using the 580 Mark II in this strip box behind, just to give a little bit of rim light, and all I'm doing is the the Pica 200. Bouncing that off my white wall at the back to lift all the shadows, and that's it. Also, forgot to mention, I'm actually firing using a cheap little trigger, which allows me to get in position, press the button, the flashes fire and the camera fire at the same time, capturing the exposure in the camera. I'm shooting on the 15mm f4 Laowa lens, manual focus, all manual focus. So what I've done, I've focused on the front edge of the stool, and that's going to be my point to know where to place my eye, and that should give us a nice sharp image. I'm shooting at f8, the shutter speed's 1/50th of a second, doesn't really matter to be fair, we're in the studio, and I've got the flash set on full power, the Pica 200 bouncing off the wall, which is going to fill the shadows, and the speed light in the softbox is also set on full power, also that's on full power. Oh, try that once more. Oh, it pulls you in so many ways. Right, next thing to do is to get the background, so I'm going to keep the same camera angle on the tripod, and I'm just going to go and shoot a random background. I've got an idea, I might do it coming out the patio doors in the garden. If that doesn't work, then I'll find a different location. That's what we're doing next. So remember these top tips, folks, when you're creating your own composite images. Camera on a tripod, keep your camera angle the same, keep your focal length the same, that helps massively, and keep the aperture the same, folks. They are super important to creating a really good composite, and it makes your life so much easier when you're bringing the images all together into Photoshop. It just makes it easier to blend those images together, and then everything just sits right, because everything looks how it should. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to jump into Photoshop, and I'm going to show you layer by layer how I've built this image up and put it together. So we're just going to bring in our background layer. We're going to adjust that by using a simple curves layer, which is clipped to that, and it's only going to adjust the background. So later on, if I want to adjust it a little bit more, I can just dive back into that curves layer and tweak it as and when I need. Now the next step is obviously to bring me in, top and bottom me, and as you can see, they've lined up quite well. They look really good. Obviously look like they're floating there at the minute. Obviously the top one is, but the bottom one's got to be kind of tied into the ground. So we're going to get to that, and I'm going to show you how I tie them in and what makes them look realistic and how it makes them fit into the scene. Once I've brought me into the scene, obviously I have to cut myself out. If I switch the mask on and off, you can see the studio shot in the studio and what that looks like. And if I switch it back off, then you can see obviously the cutout. Now another top tip, folks, is that when you are cutting somebody out, or whatever subject you're cutting out, make sure you take your time and make sure you get the cutout absolutely perfect, because it looks absolutely amazing when you get it right, but at the times when you kind of miss bits or you kind of hurry the cutout, it kind of stands out like a sore thumb, especially when you're adding a little bit of a background light to the subjects. It really emphasizes those bits that you've missed. So make sure the cutout absolutely perfect. So the next thing I want to do, once I've added myself into the scene, I need to tie me into the scene, and to do that I need to create a separate layer and just use a black brush and paint some shadows on the ground, which ties me in, my foot to the ground, and ties me into the picture. And now, as you can see, just by adding those shadows, it looks pretty real already. Now the next step, obviously I've added the shadows, I need to add a light source. Now obviously you saw how I lit that in the studio and where that light was positioned, so I'm going to place kind of a sunspot positioned in roughly that same spot or that same direction. So obviously that gives more direction to the shadows as well and makes it look a little bit more realistic. So I've simply added a couple of blank layers, used a white and yellow brush and just dotted on a big soft brush in the corner which creates that sunlight, and then I've just added a little bit of backlight behind the two subjects to kind of make them pop from the image as well, again using a white and yellow brush. Now obviously once I've added the sunlight in the back and I've added the shadows, I need to increase the highlights coming down the side of me. Now I try to shoot that in the studio. Now to emphasize those, I've created another blank layer, I've grabbed a yellow brush and I've just painted down the side of the subject, turned that layer to soft light, and that kind of gives the realistic look. That's a bit more of a highlight coming down the side of a subject, and again just makes that subject pop again from the image. Now after this, obviously me wearing the same t-shirt in the shoot, and the only difference was I was wearing a cap. Now I wanted to change the colour of the t-shirt, so I simply created a hue and saturation adjustment layer, manipulated the sliders to change the colour of the t-shirt, and then Command I to invert that layer mask on the hue and saturation layer, and then just paint in the colour of the t-shirt where I wanted. And I've done exactly the same with the hat and also the same with the trainers. Simple adjustment layers, folks, and using the masks and brushes to kind of change that colour to whatever colour you want, basically. Nice and easy. So once I finished with the colour and saturation of the top and the hat and the trainers, I then wanted to work on the shadow side of the top subject as well, because I've already done that on the bottom one, as you can see. Now also, again, as the same as the bottom subject, I wanted to just exaggerate the highlight coming down the back end of the subject to make them pop again. So I've used the same process again, blank layer, yellow brush, change the blend mode to soft light and just paint it down the edge of the subject. And as you can see, it just emphasises that highlight coming across the subject that was shot when we shot them in the studio. Then the next step, I just wanted to go in and fix the arms, obviously where I've cut out. Obviously I've got quite hairy arms, and obviously kind of when you do a cut out, it's really difficult to try and get all those hairs in, all the fine hairs. So I tend to create like a blank layers and just pick the colour of the hairs using the colour picker. And then obviously just go in, use a small brush, round about 3 pixels, and I kind of just brush in hairs on that layer, and then I tend to add a Gaussian blur to the layer of around about 0.5, 0.6, which I find works really well for small fine hairs. So that's just the little small adjustments that I want to make, and that kind of helps sell that fake. So the next process is I want to add a little bit of atmosphere to the image. Now I've used my brushes from my Ultimate Brush Bundle. They're available to download on the website. I'll put links in the description below if you want to go and check those out. So I've simply used the smoke brush and add a little bit of a smoke and haze in front of the subjects, and then what I've done is I've created another layer behind the subject and created a little bit of fog and kind of smoke effect behind them just to create that atmosphere, and adding the dust brush. Again, all these are available in the Ultimate Brush Bundle on the website, so I'll put links in the description. You can go and check those out if you want. The next step after that, I wanted to add a little bit of more interest in the sky. So again, I used one of my brushes from my brush pack and just literally dabbed on some birds in the corner to give a realistic look in the sky. So there you go. You can see there, if I switch that Ultimate Brush Bundle layer on and off, it just gives that image a little bit more of an edge, and it works really well. It kind of just gives it a little bit more of an atmosphere. So again, going back to another little bit of a fine detail, I've created another layer and I wanted to add a reflection into the end of the lens. See, because he's that close to me, I just want to add that reflection of the eye. So all I've done is I've created a selection around the end of the lens on the camera, put that on its own layer, and then I've literally just used the clone stamp tool and clone stamped his eye, which just went straight into that layer. And that's how easy that was. Change that to soft light, and it kind of gives the effect that it's got a reflection in the end of the lens. Dead simple, really straightforward. Now one of the last steps is to add a photo filter to the image. I tend to either use the blue or the orange, and that kind of just ties everything in together. Once I've done that, I make a complete stamp of every layer below, because I'm happy with everything they've done. The cutouts are all done, everything's in place that I like, so I make a complete stamp of that. Take that into Camera Raw, do a couple of adjustment tweaks to the vibrance, saturation, contrast, bring that back into Photoshop, change the blend mode to screen. That brightens everything back up, and it's kind of just makes the image pop a little bit more. And then the final process, make another copy of that layer, make a selection, a circle selection of that layer, change the blend mode to soft light or overlay, depending how contrasty you want that to look, and then just delete that selection away. And because I've set the selection with a 500 pixel feather on the edge of it, it creates a nice vignette around the subjects, which kind of just focuses us in on those two in the images. And I like doing that rather than giving it a dark vignette, because it kind of just adds a little bit more contrast, a little bit more crispness around the subject without darkening it down too much, and just focuses our eye on the subject, and it works really well. So there you go, folks. That is how I've created the thumbnail for my next YouTube video. Let's see how well this does. Let's see if it has an effect on this video, because they're saying making a great thumbnail for your YouTube video. makes all the difference. So let's see if that's actually true or not. So like I mentioned during the video, the brushes that I used are from my Ultimate Brush Bundle, which are all available to download over on the website. Links will be in the description. If you guys are new to composite photography or you're thinking about trying it, highly recommend jump in, give it a go. It's a fantastic opportunity to be as creative as you can possibly imagine. It is a great process, it really is, from learning to shoot properly, light properly, to edit all of the images in Photoshop. There's a huge amount of skills involved in creating composite images. It's not just a quick slap an image on here, cut it out and slap it. There's a lot more involved, and the more you get into it, the more you realise, and the more you just get super involved, and you really enjoy the whole process from capture to final image. It's just great skill to have, so I'd highly recommend you guys trying out some composite photography. I love it. It's an amazing process. I love the process of shooting the photographs in the studio. I love the process of finding the backgrounds, and I also love the process of combining them all together in Photoshop to create the final image. That I first kind of envisaged up here, and it's a great to kind of see it come to life layer by layer. So highly recommend go out, give it a go, folks. You'll have so much fun. So with that being said, if you've enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. And if you haven't already, flick the notification bell so you can see more videos like this down the line. And I'll see you guys in the next one. See you then.